Me on the cross. Please take my kids off. I got this. I will take it for them. Please, in Jesus' name. I'm dead serious.
Hey everyone, welcome back to DR Reports, your number one source for the most explosive sports news and insider drama that the mainstream media won't tell you. Before we dive into this absolutely insane story about Deion Sanders calling out the Cleveland Browns organization, I need to ask you for a huge favor. We're on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers, and we can't do it without you. If you love getting the real, unfiltered truth about what's happening in the sports world, smash that subscribe button right now. Seriously, we need your help to grow this community and bring you even more incredible content. Hit that bell icon too so you never miss when we drop the next bombshell. Now, let's get into what has the entire NFL world absolutely shaking right now. Coach Prime is not playing games anymore, folks. Deion Sanders just put the entire Cleveland Browns organization on blast, and what he revealed is going to blow your mind. We're talking about lies, deception, and a franchise in absolute chaos. The legendary Hall of Famer has had enough of people spreading false narratives about his son Shedeur Sanders, and he's finally speaking out. What's really going on in Cleveland? Why is Deion suddenly so concerned? And what does this mean for Shedeur's future in the NFL? Buckle up because this story has more twists and turns than a Hollywood thriller. Let's set the stage here. The Cleveland Browns are in complete disarray right now. We're talking about a dumpster fire of epic proportions. Head coaches are getting fired left and right across the NFL, and Cleveland just lost not one, but two major pieces of their coaching staff. Kevin Stefanski, their offensive coordinator, just bolted to Atlanta to become the Falcons' new offensive coordinator, and he didn't go alone. He took Tommy Rees with him, leaving the Browns scrambling to pick up the pieces. Now, owner Jimmy Haslam has to find not just a new head coach, but a whole new offensive coordinator, too. The timing couldn't be worse, and for those who've been following the Shedeur Sanders to Cleveland rumors, this development is absolutely massive. Here's where things get really interesting. Deion Sanders appeared on a recent episode of The Morning Run, a show that covers the Colorado Buffaloes. And let me tell you, Coach Prime was in rare form. When asked about the coaching carousel happening in the NFL and specifically about the situation brewing in Cleveland, Deion's response was legendary. He basically said he wasn't going to get into all that, but his body language and the knowing smirks told a completely different story. This is a man who knows something, and he's protecting his son from walking into what could be a complete disaster. You see, there's been constant speculation that Shedeur Sanders could end up in Cleveland through the NFL draft. The Browns desperately need a quarterback, and Shedeur is widely considered one of the top quarterback prospects in this year's class. But here's the problem that nobody's talking about. The Cleveland Browns have been leaking information to the media, spreading narratives about Shedeur that simply aren't true. They've been trying to control the conversation, perhaps to drive down his draft stock or to create leverage in negotiations. And Deion Sanders sees right through it. Coach Prime didn't get to where he is by being naive. This is a man who revolutionized the cornerback position, won Super Bowls, played in World Series games, and built a legendary brand that transcends sports. He knows how the game is played both on and off the field. When he sees an organization trying to manipulate the narrative around his son, he's going to call it out. And that's exactly what he's doing, even if he's being somewhat diplomatic about it on camera. The message is clear. Don't mess with my family and don't lie about my son. Let's talk about what makes this situation even more suspicious. Kevin Stefanski was supposed to be the stability that Cleveland needed. He's a two-time NFL Coach of the Year winner. But now he's jumping ship to Atlanta, taking his offensive coordinator Tommy Rees with him. For those who don't know, Tommy Rees is no joke. This guy was the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame and worked under Nick Saban at Alabama. He knows how to develop quarterbacks and run sophisticated offensive schemes. The fact that both of these guys are leaving Cleveland at the same time sends a massive red flag about what's really happening inside that organization. Think about it from Shedeur's perspective. Why would you want to go to a franchise that just lost its entire offensive infrastructure? You're a young quarterback trying to start your NFL career, and you need stability, good coaching, and a solid system to develop in. Cleveland right now offers none of that. They're basically starting from scratch on the offensive side of the ball, and whoever becomes their next head coach and offensive coordinator will be implementing completely new systems. That's not exactly the ideal landing spot for a promising young quarterback who's trying to prove himself at the highest level. But wait, there's more to this story that makes it even juicier. Remember when Deion said on the morning run that Atlanta was the house he built? That wasn't just some casual comment. Coach Prime was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons back in the late 80s and became a superstar there. He has deep roots in that city and that organization. Now, with Kevin Stefanski heading to Atlanta as the new head coach, suddenly there's a connection that nobody saw coming. Could this actually be a strategic move? Could Deion have been working behind the scenes to steer his son away from Cleveland and potentially toward Atlanta instead? The Atlanta Falcons fans are having a complete meltdown right now, and honestly, you can't blame them. They've been watching their team struggle for years, and when they finally get a chance to hire a new head coach after all those interviews and all that searching, they end up with Kevin Stefanski from Cleveland. The reaction videos online are absolutely priceless. Fans are calling it a class reunion photo, saying Stefanski is a loser who's been losing for years in Cleveland and questioning what the actual hell their front office was thinking. One fan literally screamed, "This is not what I wanted. This man is a loser." The passion is real, and the disappointment is palpable. But here's the thing that those angry Falcons fans might not be considering. What if bringing Stefanski to Atlanta is actually part of a bigger plan? What if the Falcons are positioning themselves to draft Shedeur Sanders, and they brought in Stefanski specifically because they think he can develop a young quarterback? Tommy Rees coming along adds even more credibility to this theory. The guy literally coached Jalen Hurts at Alabama and helped develop quarterbacks at Notre Dame. If you're building an offense around a rookie quarterback, having Rees as your offensive coordinator is actually a pretty smart move. Meanwhile, Shedeur and his brother Shiloh were spotted overseas at a fashion event in France. These guys were living their best lives, attending what appeared to be an Amiri fashion show, looking absolutely fly, and giving interviews to Complex magazine. When asked where they get their swag from, there was this hilarious moment where they both acknowledged it comes from their dad, Dayon, even though they try to do their own thing. It's these humanizing moments that remind us these guys are still young, still figuring out their path, and still very much connected to their father's legacy and guidance. The timing of this fashion event is interesting too. While the NFL coaching carousel is spinning out of control and everyone's speculating about where Shedeur will land, he's overseas focusing on his brand, his image, and building his empire beyond football. That's classic Deion Sanders mentality right there. Don't let the noise distract you. Build your brand. Control your narrative. Make smart decisions that set you up for long-term success, not just immediate gratification. Shedeur is learning from the master, and it shows. Let's circle back to the Cleveland situation because it gets even messier. The Browns have been an absolute disaster for the better part of 2 decades. They've cycled through head coaches like most people change socks. They've whiffed on quarterback after quarterback. Baker Mayfield, who they completely mishandled, went on to lead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the playoffs and is now thriving. Deshaun Watson, who they traded a fortune for and gave a fully guaranteed contract to, has been nothing short of a catastrophic failure both on and off the field. This is not an organization that has earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to developing young quarterbacks. So when Deion Sanders sits there and refuses to comment on the Cleveland situation, saying he's not going to get started with that, what he's really saying is he sees the red flags. He knows the history. He understands that sending his son to Cleveland right now would be like sending a lamb to slaughter. The organization is unstable. The coaching staff is in flux, and there's no clear plan for the future. Why would any father who has the leverage and the influence to steer his son elsewhere allow him to walk into that situation? This is where the lying part comes in that has Coach Prime so heated. According to sources close to the Sanders camp, the Browns have been putting out information suggesting that Shedeur is their top target, that they've had great meetings with him, and that there's mutual interest. But here's the problem. Some of that information doesn't align with what actually happened. The Browns may be trying to create a narrative that benefits them in the draft process, either to generate buzz, to make other teams think they're locked in on Shedeur so they trade up, or to smokescreen their actual intentions. Whatever the reason, Deion doesn't appreciate his son being used as a pawn in their chess game. We've seen this movie before in the NFL. Teams leak information to the media to control narratives and gain competitive advantages. It happens every single draft season. But when you're dealing with someone like Deion Sanders, who has been in the spotlight for 4 decades and knows every trick in the book, you better come correct. You can't just make up stories about his son and expect him to stay quiet. Coach Prime has spent the last few years at Jackson State and now Colorado rebuilding his coaching reputation and proving he can develop talent at the college level. His entire legacy is now tied to his son's success. He's not going to let some dysfunctional NFL franchise mess that up with false narratives and manipulation. The broader context here is that we're watching a fundamental shift in how power dynamics work in the NFL draft process. Players and their families are taking more control of their destinies. We saw it with Eli Manning refusing to play for the Chargers. We saw it with John Elway and the Colts. We saw it more recently with guys like Baker Mayfield's camp making their preferences known. Now, with Deion Sanders having such a massive platform and influence, he can literally shape where his son ends up without anyone being able to do much about it. If Coach Prime decides Cleveland isn't the right fit and makes that known publicly or even privately to other teams, it completely changes Shedeur's draft stock and landing spot. Some people might say this is unfair, that it undermines the integrity of the draft process. But here's the counterargument. Why should young players have zero say in where they start their careers when it's the single most important decision that will impact their entire professional trajectory? These guys have one shot to make a first impression in the NFL. If they land in the wrong situation with bad coaching, terrible offensive lines, and dysfunctional organizations, their careers can be over before they even begin. Having a father like Deion who can help navigate those waters isn't unfair. It's actually smart family planning. Let's talk about Tommy Rees for a minute because his departure from Cleveland to Atlanta is a massive piece of this puzzle. This dude was brought to Cleveland specifically to help fix their offensive problems and develop their quarterback situation. He spent time at Northwestern, with the Chargers, at Notre Dame, where he was a legendary quarterback himself before becoming a coach, and then with Nick Saban at Alabama, where he helped coach some of the best quarterbacks in college football. That's an incredible resume. The fact that he's leaving Cleveland after such a short time speaks volumes about what he saw inside that organization. Coaches with that kind of pedigree don't just leave situations unless they see serious problems or better opportunities elsewhere. Now he's in Atlanta with Stefanski, and they're building something together. The Falcons have pieces in place. They've got weapons on offense, a decent defense, and they're in a division that's wide open with the Saints aging, the Panthers rebuilding, and the Buccaneers in transition. If they can nail the quarterback position, they could actually be competitive pretty quickly. Enter Shedeur Sanders, a polished quarterback who played in a pro-style system at Colorado under his father's guidance, who has dealt with massive pressure and spotlight his entire life, and who has the mental makeup to handle a big market like Atlanta. Suddenly, this all starts to make a lot more sense. The fashion show appearance in France is also strategically brilliant when you think about it. While all this NFL drama is unfolding, Shedeur is building his global brand. He's associating himself with high-end fashion, luxury brands, and international exposure. That's the kind of stuff that translates to massive endorsement deals regardless of where he plays football. Even if his NFL career doesn't go exactly as planned, he's building a foundation that will serve him for decades. That's Deion Sanders coaching right there. Football is important, but your brand is forever. Protect it, grow it, and monetize it. What makes this whole situation even more fascinating is the social media reaction. Falcons fans are in shambles about the Stefanski hire. Browns fans are confused about what's happening with their franchise. And NFL analysts are trying to piece together what this all means for the draft. Meanwhile, Deion is sitting back, watching it all unfold, and playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. He's not directly commenting on specific teams or situations, but he's making his position clear enough that smart people can read between the lines. There's also the question of what happens next with Cleveland. They need to hire a head coach, and they need to find an offensive coordinator. But who wants that job right now? You're walking into a situation where the owner is notoriously impatient. The quarterback situation is a complete mess with Deshaun Watson's massive contract hanging over everything, and your offensive coordinator just left for a lateral move to another team. That's not exactly an attractive landing spot for top coaching candidates. Cleveland might end up having to settle for second or third tier options, which only makes the situation worse for any young quarterback who might end up there. The NFL draft is still months away, but the drama is already at an all-time high. Shedeur Sanders is one of the most talked about prospects in this class, not just because of his talent, but because of everything that comes with him. You're getting a quarterback with elite skills, but you're also getting Deion Sanders' influence, expectations, media attention, and yes, protection. Some teams will see that as a positive, others will see it as too much drama. But make no mistake, wherever Shedeur ends up, it will be because Deion has thoroughly vetted the situation and believes it gives his son the best chance to succeed. This story is far from over. We're going to see more coaching changes, more rumors, more media speculation, and probably more cryptic comments from Coach Prime. But one thing is crystal clear. Deion Sanders is not going to let the Cleveland Browns or any other organization control the narrative about his son with lies and manipulation. He's protecting his family, protecting their legacy, and making sure Shedeur lands in a situation where he can actually thrive. That's not being overprotective. That's being a great father and a smart advisor who understands how this business really works. So what's the bottom line here? The Cleveland Browns are in chaos. Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees bolted to Atlanta. Deion Sanders is sending not-so-subtle messages that he's paying attention to everything. Shedeur is overseas building his brand and staying above the fray. And the entire NFL world is watching to see how this all plays out. One thing's for sure, this draft season is going to be absolutely wild, and the Deion Sanders family is going to be right in the center of it all, controlling their destiny and not letting anyone else write their story. All right, everyone, that's the explosive truth about what's really going down with Deion Sanders and the Cleveland Browns. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Now, here's what I need you to do. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this deep dive into the drama. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Do you believe Cleveland is lying about Shedeur? Should Deion have this much control over where his son plays? Where do you think Shedeur should actually land in the draft? I want to hear all your thoughts. And most importantly, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button right now so we can get to 1,000 subscribers. We're building something special here at DR Reports, and I want you to be part of this community. Turn on those notifications so you never miss when we drop the next bombshell story. Until next time, keep it real, stay informed, and remember, we bring you the truth that others won't. Peace out.